Welcome to the new digs for White Bear Lake. It's the North Campus. Stadium renovation still underway, but good enough to host high school girls lacrosse. And White Bear Lake will hope to renovate a series that has been dominated by Stillwater over the last several years. In fact, Stillwater has owned the Suburban East Conference in the sport of girls lacrosse. They come in at 5-1, White Bear Lake at 3-3, and you can see it live right here on SCC. Good evening, everyone. I am Mike Peden, proudly welcoming you to our last scheduled broadcast with our current truck. We have some more spring sports coming your way, but we hope to have some new toys, new tools to give us new possibilities. So stay tuned for that. But this should be an exciting game that we've got here at the new White Bear Lake North Campus. It opened up for lacrosse and soccer. Next year, football will make its way over, and all the sports outside of hockey, of course, will head over here. White Bear Lake being introduced right now. Stillwater already introduced. The Ponies have not lost since their season opener. Let's take a look at our profiles. White Bear Lake about even. Goals for, goals allowed. 2-2 against teams above 500, and they're 3-3, so that tells you how close they are to the middle. Stillwater, they've been scoring in bunches, and they do it with depth, averaging over 13 goals per game, 3-1 against teams above 500. This is the first match against a 500 team, but they took a big step towards securing another Suburban East Conference title last week when they knocked off Cretin-Durham Hall 10-7. 8 different players scored for the Ponies, including the hat trick from Macy Neubauer. We'll take a look at our players to watch. Jada Jensen, now the last game with Woodbury hasn't been added yet, but Jensen had 7 goals in the season opener, had a couple more hat tricks. Jada picked up over 100 in her career. Will continue after the national anthem. You see the flag, and you see a little bit of wind as well. We were worried that some showers might impede the atmosphere here, but alas, it looks to be dry. It has been a wet, unsettled week. In fact, unsettled week and a half. Last Friday, I was at the Stillwater Cretin-Durham Hall game where we had to dance around some rain showers. But the only dancing we're going to do is on this turf here at the White Bear Lake North Campus. The stadium doesn't have an official name yet, but I'm sure we'll get there. There's a look at Stillwater, a team that has been to state just about every year. Carly Fedorowski, the head coach. Stillwater coming into this week 4th in the state in the most recent poll, trailing Benilde St. Margaret's, Prior Lake, Lakeville South, your Blue Bloods. Stillwater and Lakeville South will meet next Saturday. That game should have state tournament seeding implications on the line, both Stillwater and White Bear Lake in Section 4. So, of course, anything can happen when you get to postseason play, and they don't have a runaway score. That's Colleen Cameron. Had a chance to catch up with her pre-game in the press box, head coach of White Bear Lake. told me she watched a game video of the Stillwater CDH match 3 times, trying to pick up whatever she can. She's noted the dominance Stillwater has exerted in the Suburban East and in this rivalry. Stillwater's player to watch, their leading goal scorer, still the only one in double digits, Madeline Richard. 18 goals, 4 hat tricks this season, but as we said in the open, Stillwater has a plethora of options on offense, so it's not just Madeline who can make this team go. Remember, in that win over CDH, the only person who got a hat trick was Neubauer. Mesa McElmurray, the goalie for White Bear Lake. And we'll get Stillwater's goalie in a moment. Rio Atkinson typically starts as we meet in the draw area. They call it draws in girls lacrosse, and boys, it's the face-off circle. Functionally, they work the same, but we are ready to go. Control will go to Stillwater after a brief moment of confusion. No, White Bear Lake. We're underway. Again, the big change this year involves drawing fouls, and you see it there with number 38, Quinn Denny, the Missouri Western commit. Several college commits, including a couple of D1s, Jada Jensen and Beverly Peterson. Stillwater takes over. Cretin-Durham Hall gave them a challenge, but in that game, it was a battle for first place in the conference. 8 players scored for Stillwater, just 2 for Cretin-Durham Hall. And that depth is something Stillwater brings a lot of. So even though they have just 1 score in double digits this season, when you look at their stat line, they have a lot of players with 9, 8, 7, etc. Anyone on the attack can chip in, can lace in a goal at any time. That is what makes them so tricky. Neubauer, there she is with the touch, just outside the 8-meter line. Trying to work it, instead flips. Stillwater going to the middle. Number 42 drew the foul, but she scored. That's Madeline Richard. She gets Stillwater on the board. And that is one of the changes this year as we take another look at the Richard score, which comes 1 minute 29 seconds into the period. She's done a lot of that. Richard, a junior. And quite a few seniors, but Stillwater, their reign of dominance, not just in the conference, but in the section, is quite notable. The only team that I believe interrupted that conveyor belt was Hill Murray several years ago. Richard with her 19th of the season. White Bear Lake will get the ball, not for long. It gets knocked out. White Bear Lake running their first set. So as I was going to explain, the foul that Richard drew just outside the 8-meter line, one of the changes involving that procedure, in the past, if players were fouled, they would typically have to stop play. But speaking with one of the officials, we have a foul inside the 8-meter line, so it will be a free look potentially for White Bear Lake's Grace Castro, the junior. In the early stages of the Suburban East Conference battle, Castro goes low, and White Bear Lake notches their first goal of the game. It comes at 2:07 of the first quarter. So to continue, if a player in the past drew a foul, they'd have to stop, wait to get their free space, and then go again. If it's in the act of a shot when you get to that area, or if it's in stride, the player now has the option to continue the attack or request that free space. It's a bit like soccer. If you draw a foul, you can either play the ball as soon as it's spotted by the official, or have that official request the 10-yard halo that we talk about. That's the best way I can describe it. One of the big changes for girls lacrosse this year. And that was done. I talked to one of the officials who explained that to avoid penalizing players who draw the foul, because if you have to wait for your free space, it can give the defense a chance to set up. And obviously the change to quarters. Stillwater had the ball briefly. White Bear Lake takes it back. Again, Stillwater, if things go according to the metrics, they may have already taken the inside track to the Suburban East Conference title with that win over Cretin-Derham Hall. But if anyone else behind them should get a win, like White Bear Lake or East Ridge, that would jumble up the standings. Off-speed shot by White Bear Lake was picked up by Atkinson that time. That was number 26. A name I don't see. We'll try to get confirmation. There are two 23s on the roster that we found. Obviously that can't be right. You can't wear duplicate numbers. So we'll get that sorted out here. It's either Julie Hendrickson or Ava Moss. That'd be my guess. Stillwater trying the centering pass for Raina Malmberg. Instead it gets away, and it was not ruled a shot on goal, and that's important. Shots on goal, it's whoever's closest to the ball, but if it's ruled a pass and it goes out of bounds, then it's a turnover. Now you saw White Bear Lake backing off, waiting for a passing option. In girls lacrosse, there is no time limit to get the ball across midfield. The only time limit involves the goalie. Oh! Errant pass swallowed up by Ava Mosley. Stillwater with a chance. They won't be able to push it down for a transition look, but as you know, turnovers on the defensive side, they can haunt. And Stillwater will take their time. No shot clock at the high school level for girls lacrosse. There is a shot clock at the college level. It was put in place for the women's game a few years ago. And with this and several other facilities having play clocks for football, that wasn't a thing when I was in high school years ago. Who knows, if they add a shot clock, it wouldn't be too difficult. Now you saw the pass get away from Stillwater before it was recovered by Ellie Dahlstrom. That goes back to the lack of time limits, no midfield line, none of that. Stillwater looking for shooting space. Malmberg was cut off. Stillwater resets. And the reset was a wise move. Ava Mosley makes it 2-1, 6:39 left in the first. Mosley with their first goal. Again, expect to see a lot of numbers get entered into the scorebook if Stillwater has their way. And to finish the explanation that I was getting at, there is no backfield violation like boys lacrosse. So if you pass and it gets behind where the defenders are, no more than 7 to a side, anyone can pick it up and you would not incur a violation for doing so. Mosley with her 10th goal of the year. She and Neubauer both had 9 coming in. Malmberg, Indira Capel, Lydia Glass, they've all put up a few. In Stillwater, it's a bit like how Don Staley described South Carolina. It's not a team where you're going to put up 7-8 goals a game regularly, but it is a team where you will get to play part of the equation and help solve that puzzle. You could get a sense of Stillwater's confidence at the start of the season as they exert their confidence there on the quick stick. Glass with the assist. Cassidy Kikol with the score. It's 3-1. Two goals in about 30 seconds, and that is the benefit of winning the face-offs or draws, as they call it in girls lacrosse. But going back to the confidence, the mojo, the swagger. Stillwater started the season against Prior Lake. They typically have done so. They have another game against Lakeville South. You don't get a lot of non-conference options in boys or girls lacrosse. It's a short season. Everyone plays each other once in conference. So you have 9 games there and maybe 4 or 5. But 2 of the teams are 2 of the Blue Bloods. Lakeville South reached the semis last year, shockingly upset. Prior Lake, another team that is always in the mix. White Bear Lake takes the draw this time. Stillwater with an early 3-1 lead here in White Bear Lake, the North Campus. A venue that has already seen its share of activity. This was the host site for the inaugural East-West Boys Lacrosse Showdown that took place in the first week of the season. State soccer quarterfinals were held here. And this venue isn't even completed yet. White Bear Lake looking to complete the attack. And they do. That's the Detroit Mercy commit, Jada Jensen, a 3-year captain, who makes it 3-2. 5:23 left in the first. Jensen, you can see, got the pass from the point and simply outran Avery Earlbeck. If you've got speed, agility, acceleration, you don't need to do anything fancy, just outrun your opponent. As I was noting before, as we get ready for another draw, and you can probably see it in the background when we take the wide shots. Well, not quite, but this stadium not yet finished. They'll add more bleachers, get some more amenities in place. Of course, this campus still going through its renovations. Everyone will move into the North Campus next year. Stillwater running a set. The key for White Bear Lake, of course, try to keep this close as long as they can when you're the underdog. Back at the point, it's Macy Neubauer. Had that hat trick against Cretin-Durham Hall on a windy, chilly, raw Friday evening last week. That pass gets away. And White Bear Lake takes over. And again, no time limit here, so you're not going to see the same urgency. That's the only time limit Mesa McElmurray has, and any goalie, any keeper has. You have 10 seconds to get the ball out of the crease or out of your grasp. It's still White Bear Lake ball. So you have to make a play, usually a pass, or step outside. Our first yellow of the game, charging, I think was the call. And this will impact Stillwater's Madeline Richard. Shots on goal, you can see even so far. Richard, the leading scorer. And as you may know, if you watched our past lacrosse coverage on SCC Sports, in girls lacrosse, another foul was drawn by Zoe Timmons. But in girls lacrosse, if you get 2 yellow cards, then you are sent off of the game. If a team gets 4 yellows in a game, then they lose a player. So we saw this in the Matamidi Breck game in our first spring sports broadcast of the year. If a player gets 2 yellows and is then sent off, that doesn't mean her team has to play 1 player down the rest of the way. There is a difference. White Bear Lake on a 2-minute power play or woman up, but it's Stillwater looking for the shorthanded opportunity up the middle. McElmurray with the save against Neubauer, and that's a big one. Outlet, Stillwater swoops in. This is dangerous, but Neubauer, her pass got a little high for her teammate Cassidy Keikel to track down. Stillwater will have to run a set. If nothing else, it helps kill off more penalty time. Typically in girls lacrosse, if you get a yellow, it's a 2-minute non-releasable penalty. Boys lacrosse, as you know, multiple variations. Stillwater hanging around the point outside that 12-meter line. Now they run a give and go, and it works to perfection. Mosley with the pass to Malmberg. And Malmberg is now the 4th different Stillwater player to score in this game. Similar to the playbook they executed last Friday. We take another glimpse. That's the benefit of not having a shot clock and having someone stationed behind the net. Typically, a team running a set will do so to get themselves in a favorable position for loose balls or shots on goal that don't hit the net. But there is a secondary benefit, as we just witnessed there. A shorthanded goal, too. And that speaks to the strength and the balance, the versatility of Stillwater's attack. By the way, temperature about 63 degrees in White Bear Lake. Light winds and humidity, not much of a problem. Dew point around 45 degrees. We got close to 70 today. It's the kind of weather that can cause havoc with your wardrobe, though. Midday, it's perfectly fine to wear shorts and a t-shirt, but once that sun sets, you might be digging up those light jackets. White Bear Lake hopes to dig up another goal here. It's only a 2-goal game. Stillwater has been the team in front in this first quarter in terms of possession time, attacking chances. Walmberg scoring the last one, and Atkinson getting the stop there. This could be a key sequence. Outlet gets away. Can Stillwater track it down? They can before it goes out of bounds. This is Lydia Glass. Over to Mosley, who picked up an assist with the last score. Around it goes for Stillwater. No shot clock, so they can take this all the way down if they want. 15 seconds. Richard drew the foul, but she's going to have to get set up. No, they stopped the clock with 10 seconds. But she has to set up at the 12-meter line. Now the clock runs again. Richard tries to dump it, and instead the pass goes offline. A couple of passing miscues may have hurt Stillwater's offensive attack, but they're off to a solid start. They lead 4-2 at the end of the first quarter.
Hey, it's a White Bear Lake area high school girls lacrosse team. We'd like to thank the following sponsors for their generous support of our program for the 2024 lacrosse season. Thank you to our
Stillwater has not lost since their season opener against Prior Lake, and that game was just a 2-goal margin. So the Ponies, you would think right there, in what is a single-class sport, boys and girls lacrosse, a rarity these days, but even though lacrosse has been around for a while, just one tournament, one champion. Here's a look at our first quarter highlights. Stillwater got on the board 91 seconds into the game. Madeline Richard with her 19th, one of 4 players to register a goal. White Bear Lake getting an answer a short time later. Grace Castro. One of the several quick stick plays that Stillwater has executed splendidly. There's a delayed one, but it paid off. Mosley to Kekal. White Bear Lake got back within 1 on this solo attack by Jada Jensen, the Detroit Mercy commit. One of 2, Beverly Peterson the other. And Stillwater getting the last one of the first quarter. Still a long way to go, of course. But Stillwater holding the edge thus far. And as you can see on the graphic, nobody leading in scoring, because in Stillwater's case, their 4 goals have come from 4 different players. White Bear Lake, again, Castro and Jensen both have scored. For Stillwater, it might be the case. We might not see a name on that screen as we continue in this game. You look at all the players who can chime in, get this team on the board. It's quite fascinating. Last year, Lakeville South, who won it all back in 22, had one of the state's leading scorers. The Stillwater team, a top 5 team all season long, and they don't have that explosive runaway player. It will be interesting to see as the season continues what happens and how that will play out. Again, Stillwater 4th in this week's poll. Benilde St. Margaret's, Lakeville South, Prior Lake ahead of them. White Bear Lake wins the draw here to start the second. Stillwater, one of 2 Suburban East teams in the top 10. Cretin-Durham Hall, the other. White Bear Lake draws the foul. Zoe Timmons, the Minot commit, stationed at the 12-meter line. You've noticed this by now, but when a player draws a foul and has to sit up at the 12-meter line, they'll typically continue the set. The 12-meter line not ideal for direct attack compared to the 8-meter line. Beverly Peterson able to work her way inside. Her shot went off the mark. However, White Bear Lake closest to the ball, so they can run another set. Peterson up top. More passes. They find Jensen, but she was swarmed by a sea of red. A radiance of red, if alliteration is your thing. White Bear Lake taking their time. Again, no shot clock, so they can take as much time as they want. Any team can. Now Peterson slices through the defense. And whites up, or should I say lights up the scoreboard with her first goal of the game.
Number 11, Beverly Peterson.
9:50 left in the second. Beverly Peterson, the fellow Detroit Mercy commit. It is a Division I school. And when it comes to lacrosse, you'll find a lot of colleges that don't come up as frequently as they do for the revenue sports, I guess is the way to call it: basketball, football, hockey. And Zoe Timmons, we mentioned she's going to Minot. I should clarify, she's going to Minot for hockey. And coincidentally, you'll find a lot of hockey crossovers taking up lacrosse. There are some similarities. As we await the draw. 4-3 the score. White Bear Lake hanging tough. Winning the draw here can go a long way. Again, whether you call it a draw in girls lacrosse or a face-off in boys lacrosse, they both have the same value, the same asset. If you can string together a series of face-off wins or draw controls, you can control tempo, you can run sets, and you can rack up goals in a hurry. That is what White Bear Lake aims to do. Peterson. Had it. Now it's Georgia Koditek, number 3, it looks like. Looking for a passing target, and the ball gets away. Jensen scoops it up. Got to be careful. Again, no midfield violation to worry about, but you don't want to give Stillwater a free ball in stride. As Jensen draws the foul. Crossed 100 goals last year for her career. At the 12-meter line. Was sizing up the middle. Now Peterson draws a foul, and if it took place, yes, I thought it did, inside the 8-meter line. White Bear Lake with a prime position to tie this up. Peterson does just that. .802 left in the second, and White Bear Lake staying with Stillwater. Again, the Woodbury game has not been added into the stat lines yet, so the picture not quite complete. For Bev Peterson, though, that's her second goal of the game. She and Jensen will play college lacrosse together. Even though I can't tell you what happened in the Woodbury game, I can tell you that Bev Peterson did pick up a couple of hat tricks. 4 goals against Tilbury, 4 goals against Forest Lake. And another draw control goes White Bear Lake's way. Yes, it's early in the second quarter, but how big would this be if White Bear Lake can knock another one in and assume the lead? Peterson with a pair of goals already. No shortage of options, of course. And when you're the underdog, this is what you want to do. How do you create those upset opportunities as the ball gets loose for a moment. Now retrieved by White Bear Lake. Working along the left side of the crease, now drawing the foul was number 16, Olivia Simpkins, the sophomore, and she'll get to set up at the 8-meter line. She stopped her attack, and that's what led officials to make the whistle again. They will let players follow through on an attack or shot attempt if they draw a foul when you see the flag go up. Simpkins, oh, I don't know if she got the grip she wanted. Looked like the ball got away from her stick just as she released it. But Kylie Lehman is there to keep it on the White Bear Lake side. And another chance here for White Bear Lake as we enter the twilight phase of this eve of Star Wars Day. It is May 3rd. You know what tomorrow means. Unless you're not a fan, in which case, I'm sorry for going over your head. White Bear Lake keeping Stillwater in check, though. This is the first time I think they've had possession on the attacking side. White Bear Lake has dominated ball control, but Stillwater needs little time to fire a laser. Mark Wolden gives Stillwater a 5-4 lead and the 5th different player to score for the Ponies. White Bear Lake takes a timeout with 5:35 left in the second quarter. You get 2 timeouts per half. They don't carry over. So an understandable time to use a timeout in this situation. 5:35 left in the second. If you just joined us, Stillwater has 5 goals from 5 different players. White Bear Lake hanging with them. Bev Peterson has a pair to lead the Bears. Here's a look at the Suburban East standings. We spoke of the significance of the Stillwater Cretin-Durham Hall game last week. You see East Ridge, Park of Cottage Grove. They are not too far behind. Park of Cottage Grove sitting at 4-1. White Bear Lake, let's not count them out yet. If they somehow get a win, that would really open up the conference race. And why is that significant? Typically, your conference winners get more leeway when it comes to section and state tournament seeding. Now, this isn't to say Stillwater is home free after beating Cretin-Durham Hall. There's more to this than just rankings, but Stillwater, the bellwether, the barometer that so many teams have tried to figure out, work their way around, and year after year, that has proven to be a difficult exercise. But we saw some of those other teams. Stillwater, they knocked off another conference undefeated in Park of Cottage Grove, and they beat Eastridge pretty handily. Looking at the remaining conference games, they have just 2 more with Forest Lake and Woodbury. Forest Lake down in the depths. Woodbury did get a win over White Bear Lake, but you would think if Stillwater can sneak past White Bear Lake, that would be it. Their remaining 4 games after that are non-comp. No, I take that back. They have Mounds View. I misspoke. But that's the thing when you have a sport and only 1 round of conference play. So after the timeout, winning the draw is Jada Jensen. We'll have a do-over here as time continues to roll. Less than 5 minutes to go in the second. We should also point out it's food truck season now. Cretin-Durham Hall had one for their game on Wednesday that I got to cover, and we've had a couple for this White Bear Lake Stillwater tilt. White Bear Lake looking for a seam and getting pushed from behind was Koditek. After Kylie Lehman was swarmed, that means Koditek gets to stroll to the 8-meter line and gets a chance perhaps to tie this up again. The dump to Jensen. What a beauty. You don't see that often in girls lacrosse. A kick out or a dump, if you will, off an 8-meter look, but it paid off handsomely. Jensen with the first goal of the second quarter, her second of the game. Koditek with her first assist, and we are even again. As a well-known but doomed figure would say in Jurassic Park, clever girl. In reference to the play we just saw, oftentimes when you get a look from what I've seen at the 8-meter line, a player will take a shot directly and everyone concentrating on that player, in this case Koditek, because usually when you're at the 8-meter line, especially if you have that first step, you're going to swing away. Perfect time to use yourself as a decoy. Stillwater zooming downfield after winning the draw. That is Indira Capel. So right after White Bear Lake tied it, Stillwater retakes the lead in almost no time flat. Indira Capel, the 6th player to score a goal for the Ponies.
Scoring for Stillwater, number 14.
That happened 11 seconds after the goal from Jensen. That is how quickly the momentum can swing. That is how quickly you can strike if you get the face-off or draw control win. Stillwater up 6-5. And having covered Stillwater several times, like we said, they're not going to be in the hunt for any stat categories. They won't be leading the state in any of those areas, goals, assists, but collective is what makes them work. I know you hear that phrase get thrown around a lot. Playing team ball, yada, 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 et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But Stillwater, a true embodiment of it. But again, still a close one. Jensen got it to Lehman, needed to lunge slightly to ensure the ball would find her stick. These goals have come so quickly, we're having a hard time keeping up. Jada Jensen, if you're wondering about the time of her last goal. And we have the one for Capel as well. These players are putting our truck team to work, and they're putting me to work too. They know how to put in work. Timmins, the Minot hockey commit, with the pass to Koditek. .225 to go. There's the last goal from Capel at 8:17 is how they scored it. White Bear Lake, I'm curious to see how they approach this. Again, no time limit on a possession except for the clock. Jensen, the spin move, Meets another Stillwater defender, but she draws contact. If there's anyone you don't want to give a chance to at the 8-meter line, I'm guessing number 18 would be someone, but instead she backs off. I don't know if it was by design or just a split time decision, quick time decision, but it doesn't pay off for White Bear Lake. A turnover picked up by Walden. Stillwater, their pass goes awry. White Bear Lake catches a break. What will they do here? Another penalty on Stillwater. Raina Malmberg, 2 minutes for dangerous contact. Remember, in girls lacrosse, players do not wear helmets. So any contact to the head from a stick, officials are going to call that. And with 1:19 left, this penalty will carry over into the third quarter. Remember, it's 2 minutes non-releasable, and that is the second yellow of the game for Stillwater. If they get 2 more, they would have to take out a player. So they have 2 yellows, 2 team yellows. Malmberg and Richard both given yellows. White Bear Lake ties it up. They were looking for a space up the middle, and they got it with 55 seconds left. Kodidek to Peterson. Bada bing, bada boom, as the saying goes. Peterson with a hat trick. Kodidek with her second assist. No, they say Jensen? Looked like Peterson on the replay. I saw an 11. Did the truck see an 11? We saw 11. So everyone in agreement that we saw 11. I'm going to go with that. I know Obi-Wan Kenobi once said, your eyes can deceive you, don't trust them, but we had several sets of them here. I'm warming up for tomorrow, as you probably picked up on. But White Bear Lake, I'd say they've warmed up. A game that we thought they might run into some headwinds, turbulence, is instead turning into a game where they are testing Stillwater's mettle. We still have 2 more quarters to play, but I don't think you could ask for a much better first half. White Bear Lake really turning things around in the second quarter as we get set again for the draw control. That stops the clock with 48 seconds. Peterson with her 3rd confirmed hat trick. It's White Bear Lake ball after the draw, or is it? No, it is. They just had to get reset. Time running off the clock, 30 seconds. As White Bear Lake waiting for the free space. Now they can resume. Pass gets away. Still time for White Bear Lake, but with the play in danger of blowing up. Whoa! That's it for Richard. She just got hit with her 2nd yellow. A check to the back is, I believe, what the officials said. So Richard is out of the game. And that is the 3rd yellow for Stillwater. So the next, another whistle. White Bear Lake will have a 2-woman advantage for about the next minute going into the 3rd. Stillwater's leading scorer out of the game. A major development. And an opening perhaps for White Bear Lake. Jensen had that shot bobbled. Stillwater will likely run out the clock here. That's exactly what they'll do. The tides seemingly turning against Stillwater. Their leading scorer, Madeline Richard, out of the game with 2 yellows. And White Bear Lake will start the third quarter with a 2-woman advantage. We are even at 6. We'll take a short break and try to unpack all of these developments when we return. You're watching High School Girls Lacrosse on SEC Sports.
The impact of a meal goes well beyond feeding our bodies. Food can open endless possibilities for people to thrive. Because when people are fed, futures are nourished. Everyone deserves to live a full life. And with your help, together we can end hunger. Join the movement at feedingamerica.org/actnow.
Are you ready to help your family get prepared for the unexpected?
Everyone in? Here we go!
Ladybug and Cat Noir know how important it is to be ready. Because you never know when Hawk Moth is going to strike, or a disaster will hit.
Go, Rose!
And you don't need miraculous powers. Just put those planning skills you already have to good use. Know who to call, decide on a safe meeting location, and create an emergency preparedness kit. Make a plan that will help you and your family be ready when emergencies happen. Ready Kids can help.
I'm coming to save you!
Get started at ready.gov/kids.
Losing the fear of looking foolish comes with age.
Who did you steal him from?
Losing your way in your own home doesn't. Confusion with time and place may be a sign of Alzheimer's.
Mom, are you okay? Yeah, I'm fine.
Early detection gives you and your loved one time to plan for the future. Learn the warning signs of Alzheimer's.
At the start of the game, we were praising the depth of Stillwater for their 5-1 record. That depth will be put to the test for the second half. You see the score, we're even at 6, but Madeline Richard out of the game with 2 yellow cards. White Bear Lake will start the third quarter with a 2-woman advantage. What a game, what a first half here on SCC Sports. White Bear Lake looking for what would be a major upset that would open up the Suburban East Conference race and also open up the Section 4 race as well. Looking at the highlights, Stillwater got the early jump, and for a time, it looked like it was just a matter of time before they found their footing. Like the Cretan-Durham Hall game last week, but White Bear Lake proving resilient. Stillwater putting on some great moves, as we saw Cassidy Keikel again. 6 different players have scored. Jada Jensen has a pair of goals for White Bear Lake. That was her first one. Here is the quick stick to Raina Malmberg, and again it goes to show all the different players. Bev Peterson with her first of 3 goals, I believe. There's goal number 2. The first half was defined by not just White Bear Lake's resilience, but Stillwater's ability to respond quickly. This is Marit Wolden going top shelf. White Bear Lake tied it up a couple of times, and Stillwater would get a quick answer like that play from Indira Capel 11 seconds after White Bear Lake tied it at 5. But Kodidek found Peterson late in the second, 55 seconds to go, and then right after that, you didn't see it, the illegal body check call, illegal check I should say, on Richard gave her second yellow, and so she will be done. As a result, Peterson with a hat trick, her third confirmed one. Again, the Woodbury stats have not been entered into the hub yet. Shots on goal even, and on the Stillwater side, 6 players all have scored. That will have to be utilized if Stillwater wants to remain undefeated in conference play. They only have 3 more meetings after this, and based on the opponents left, you would think it would be smooth sailing, but White Bear Lake giving Stillwater all they can handle here at the new venue that still doesn't have a name. I think they're taking submissions. Maybe we can have some in the truck. Speaking of, here's the upcoming schedule. White Bear Lake will have several more home games on the slate, including their last 3 with Eastridge, Blake, and the Battle of the Lake, Matamidi. No matter the sport, White Bear Lake and Matamidi will square off. Some fun bragging rights there. In Stillwater, we were talking about the Lakeville South game. Whatever happens tonight, that's still a big one. The last of 3 straight home games, and then their final 3 matches are on the road. Mounds View, Chanhassen, and Edina. Lakeville South, looking at the schedule, the remaining games figures to be the team that would give Stillwater the most trouble, the one that would likely sway state tournament seeding, but a White Bear Lake win would change that up in a big way. Winds seem to be picking up a bit. And the temperature now 59 degrees. Again, bright sunny day. But days like this, April and May are known for them. When you get those warm days without those sticky dew points, once that sun sets, it feels like someone turned on the air conditioner and set it to max. And as I say that, I think I see a few kids, a few patrons returning, probably running to their cars or wherever they have coats, blankets. Days like this, again, are a nightmare to dress for. in some ways. But we're underway here in this third quarter, and someone will get to live out the dream of a victory. If it's White Bear Lake, again, that would shake up a lot in Section 4, the conference and the state rankings. Stillwater, again, facing adversity here. Richard with her second yellow, done for the day. Raina Malmberg is finishing out her penalty. That is now expired, so she can return to the field. And remember, Stillwater as a team with 3 yellows, if another player gets a yellow card penalty, they would have to play the remainder of the game with a woman down. It's not like soccer where if you get 2 yellows, it equals a red and then that player can't be replaced. You do have that luxury. White Bear Lake had an opening, but that hesitation by Koditek might have cost her there. Looked like she had a look straight away, cut to her left. Big play in a tie game. Stillwater, I'll give them this much. They have done excellently when it comes to killing off penalties. They actually scored a shorthanded goal back in the first quarter on the first yellow card that Richard incurred. Atkinson, no, that's 45. Jacqueline Richard taking over at the net. Keepers, goalies are allowed to roam about the field. Reset after Jacqueline Richard drew the foul. Stillwater on the move. Both penalties have been killed off, but again, Madeline Richard goes back to the bench. She cannot return to the field. So we are at full strength. Stillwater killing off both penalties. White Bear Lake did get 1. .9:28 to go. White Bear Lake, they did bring back a lot of experience from last year, including Jada Jensen and Bev Peterson. But when you look at their record and their performance thus far, again, perhaps a little difficult to fathom them being in contention well into the second half. But here we are. And another goal here would ignite confidence to astronomical levels, I think. They started the season with a 14-4 win over Hill Murray, but struggled against Cretin-Durham Hall and Parker Cottage Grove and Woodbury. So when they win big. When they haven't done well, they're seemingly run out of the building. Going in against the leaders and the 4th-ranked team in the state might make others cringe, but White Bear Lake, they were ready. Again, head coach Colleen Cameron talked about watching this battle, I should say watching Stillwater Cretin-Durham Hall last week multiple times. I know they teach you not to focus too much on any one game, but that tells you how much this matchup, this win would mean for White Bear Lake. Jensen found her target, but the pass was bobbled. Ultimately recovered by White Bear Lake and number 16, Olivia Simpkins. By the way, number 26 is Julie Hendrickson, for those who were wondering. Simpkins couldn't break free, but it's ruled a shot on goal, so White Bear Lake hangs on. The longest possession I've seen. They try a quick stick, a foul just before the shot. That could send Zoe Timmons, the Minot hockey commit. Yes, it does, to the 8-meter line. Last time they were there, they ran a decoy. Timmons backs off. Again, it depends on how confident you feel in your quickness, your agility, your swiftness in a situation like that. An 8-meter looks certainly a great chance for a score. And Stillwater coming up with a defensive stop. Grace Young swooping in. Was that Young? No, that was number 9, Maya Kruger, who got the deflection and ultimately the turnover after a lengthy possession for White Bear Lake. Big chance here again, Stillwater. They don't have to rely on Madeline Richard exclusively. We talked about all of the players who have put up goals. 6 different players in this game have scored a goal for Stillwater. 8 players scored a goal in their win over Cretin-Durham Hall in a battle that we thought would, in all likelihood, decide the Suburban East Conference. If you just joined us, Madeline Richard got 2 yellow cards, so she cannot return. And another team yellow for Stillwater, and they would have to play shorthanded the rest of the way. Stillwater, around and around they go. Foul is drawn. If you're curious, no yellows for White Bear Lake. Lydia Glass has an assist. This would be a huge goal. In a sense, any of them would be big for Stillwater, as they search for leadership without Madeline Richard. Glass off the post. Had the look. The one-hopper clanks off the iron. White Bear Lake catches a break. And with the more deliberate pace we've seen from the 2 sides so far, empty possessions can loom large. And plays like that can loom large too. Elsa Swenson rose up for the pick. Stillwater on the move. Now they'll wait to get the offense set. Any 7 players can enter the attacking zone, but typically your primary attackers, maybe a midfielder or 2, will assume those positions. But again, as long as you have no more than 7, you're free to roam about. Stillwater looking for the quick stick instead. A takeaway for White Bear Lake. And Ava Moss getting bumped a couple of times. No, I take that back. That's number 29, Ryland West. Can be tricky to read the numbers sometimes, way up here in the press box. The spacious press box. I know we were talking about it. Looking forward to football coverage here next fall with all the space that's available. White Bear Lake flung it a little too far, too high. That was Jensen. Certainly won't falter for taking a chance to try to give White Bear Lake their first lead. Outlet, West attempting to intervene. And draws a foul in the scrum for the ground ball, so that move did pay off. West's anticipation giving White Bear Lake the ball back. Now remember, no midfield line, no rule of any kind. As getting sandwiched was Zoe Timmons. And ended up committing a foul, so Stillwater gets the ball back. This goes without saying, but given the flow of this third quarter, Stillwater takes a timeout, 2:05 left, their first of the second half, 2:03 now. But given the nature, given the developments, the trends of this third quarter, whoever can score first could have a big edge. Of course, I say that, and I've seen teams in this game too. We've seen quick responses as well. You just never know what will happen in a sport like lacrosse that doesn't have a shot clock. But this third quarter, more of a defensive duel. Neither team has scored in the frame. That is a rarity, at least in my experience. We still have another quarter to play, of course. Again, Stillwater looking to stay undefeated. They've already dispatched teams that were either undefeated or in position to dethrone them. White Bear Lake, probably not at the top of the list of teams who could pull off the upset, but White Bear Lake not giving up, not surrendering. And this is all live on SCC Sports, and the soon-to-be permanent home for all White Bear Lake sports. Over the winter, we bid farewell to the basketball and volleyball gymnasium. That will now become the property of Mariner Middle School. It will be an embarrassment of riches, though, for athletics around here at the White Bear Lake area. You'll have all these new digs, as you can see, with the North Campus, everyone moving back into one space. And I guess if something were to happen, or if there's an overflow, or I could see youth tournaments, volleyball, basketball, using both sites. The facilities at Mariner Middle School will still be there. A venue where we got to witness many highlights over the years. Many moments that I look back on in my several years calling games with SCC Sports. Right now, we're looking to enhance, enrich the memory banks of one of these two teams.
The pizza and the hot dogs to concession stands are now half price. Head down to the concession stand and score half price pizza and hot dogs right now.
Well, I don't know if the truck heard that, but if they're quick enough, there are half price hot dogs. Can someone get one for me? No, I'm kidding. Trying to clear out the inventory before the end of the game. 2:03 left after that timeout. As we said, when you're the underdog, the longer you can hang around, the more confidence you get, no matter the sport. That's the position White Bear Lake has put themselves in, but it's Stillwater with possession. And again, their bevy, their boatload, their stable of scoring can get them out of this precarious position. Again, Madeline Richard unable to return. Foul drawn by Macy Neubauer. She had a hat trick in the win over Cretin-Durham Hall. Has not scored yet. Throws it too high. Stillwater had multiple players behind the net, but that was bizarre. Macy Neubauer shot it over the crossbar. Now Stillwater, with under a minute to play in the third, has to reset. And reset they do after a brief scramble. Glass looking for the quick stick. Shot deflected. Loose ball picked up by Stillwater. It gets away. Stillwater retrieves again. These extra chances, could they prove fruitful? Can they help, I wouldn't say fix the barn after the horses come home, but Stillwater would love to get a goal here. Time running out in the third. Foul drawn by Stillwater, another 8-meter shot coming up. And that did not go as planned. Something happened with Crimson Kekol. Looked like either she tripped or just lost it. Was waiting for the shot. And McElmary doesn't have to worry about that, so White Bear Lake escapes with no damage. Stillwater had a couple of 8-meter chances. One goes high, another fizzles out. And we reach the fourth quarter. Nobody scored in the third, so we are still even at 6. We can't stay that way, of course. There are no ties in this sport, but this is perhaps the circumstance, the plot, the story, the outcome White Bear Lake wanted to be in the fourth quarter. Dead even with Stillwater. So no changes as far as leading scores. Shots on goal still even, 10 apiece. But more surprisingly, here's a few of those scoring chances. It looked like Jacqueline Richard got the stop there, getting the deflection on Koditek, but Stillwater drew 2 fouls within the 8-meter line. There's another close call. You wonder if nerves are getting in the way, and speaking of close calls, Lydia Glass, that was one of the many 8-meter chances for the Ponies. There's another one from Neubauer that overshot the mark. You saw Lydia Glass bounce one off the left post. And then Kekol, oh, I see what happened. She didn't trip. That was a stick check. I didn't see that initially. Bev Peterson with a defensive play, getting the stick check to throw Crimson Kekol off her rhythm. So no changes for the most part on that graphic, on the stat line. Stillwater has 1 timeout left in this half. White Bear Lake has both of theirs. And again, Madeline Richard with the 2 yellows cannot return. Stillwater still has 3 yellows. White Bear Lake has none. If Stillwater were to get another yellow as a team, regardless of who it is, one of their players would have to come out. They would play a woman down the rest of the way. What a finish we're about to get here at White Bear Lake. A win for the Bears, and it shakes up the Suburban East and puts more of an impetus on those remaining games. You look at the score by quarter, and you cannot get any more symmetrical than that. 4-2-0, 2-4-0. This is the money frame, the money quarter. Who will come out on top? White Bear Lake. This would be their biggest win of the season without a doubt. Stillwater, it would be a case of bend but not break if they can get out of here with the win. I say this a lot, covering sports as long as I have and having to deal with the agitation sometimes from fans who might look with angst and worry if their team doesn't win by as many games or as many points as they were expected to. It's all about that W. At this level, point differential, goal differential means nothing. All that matters is the final score. Who got the W? White Bear Lake gets the draw here to begin the fourth quarter. Stillwater, we'll see what happens, but they may look back on those missed chances in the third. A couple of shots, one that went off the post, another that sailed high. White Bear Lake had a couple as well, but overall the offensive action was muted compared to the first 2 quarters. And White Bear Lake taking their time here. Peterson flips it, Stillwater collapsing toward the middle, but a foul was called. There were 4 or 5 players all over Julie Hendrickson. And now Hendrickson gets to set up from the 8-meter line. Was that a case of too many cooks? Well, Hendrickson backs off. They continue to converge around the middle. Another foul. Kylie Lehman will go to the 8-meter line. And remember, Koditek picked up an assist in this situation a while ago, using herself as a decoy, getting the dump to an open Jada Jensen, who's along the left side. Koditek wants the shot directly and didn't work out, but White Bear Lake waiting behind the net. But the slower pace of the second half, whoever scores will have a big advantage, and not just because they'll be in the lead, but they can set the tone perhaps more effectively, more authoritatively. Another foul on Stillwater. White Bear Lake, this time Zoe Timmons sets up at the 12-meter line. Probably won't go for a direct attack here. And does not, instead throws it away. Those mistakes are magnified when you're in a tight game like this. And now a stick check penalty called on Koditek. 2 minutes, I believe, dangerous contact. Koditek was making a play with her stick and came close to Gretchen Wenner, a little too close. First yellow for White Bear Lake, 2 minutes, non-releasable. And then an errant throw by Stillwater. Now if you're White Bear Lake. Oh my goodness, another yellow! It's on Stillwater's Marit Walden. That's her first. And she goes to the penalty area in frustration. That is the fourth yellow for Stillwater, and that means they will be down a player the rest of the way. White Bear Lake has it, and because of that, will be at even strength effectively. Walden, now she can return. She is not out of the game. But after the penalties, White Bear Lake will have a woman up the rest of the way. Peterson gives White Bear Lake the lead. Off the feed from Jensen. Third time this season, Peterson has scored 4 in a game. If you're a White Bear Lake fan, you just might say that was worth waiting for, but 8:32 left, that is an awful lot of time. Stillwater looked like they would gain the upper hand after the yellow card penalty on Georgia Koditek, and then seconds later, Marit Walden called for a swing. She gets a yellow, the fourth for Stillwater. We remain 6-on-6, for lack of a better term, technically 10-on-10 if you want to be precise about it. But when the penalties expire, Stillwater will lose a player. White Bear Lake will be back at full strength. Again, they have just one yellow card as a team, so they still have plenty of breathing room. They get the draw here. They are in front, but this is what I call the danger zone, even if Stillwater is shorthanded. We've seen this in sports that don't have shot clocks. When you lead by 1, I know some will say the 2-goal lead is the most dangerous, but when you have just a 1-goal lead, all it takes is one slip up and you can find yourself facing treacherous waters. You want to get that insurance. Peterson with 4 goals, leading the way for White Bear Lake. It's her 3rd confirmed 4-goal game. Again, the Woodbury statistics have not been added to the hub yet, so that's why I say confirmed, because White Bear Lake did pick up a few. The penalty on Kodidek has expired, and Wolden's penalty will expire shortly after, but again, because of the 4 yellows, Stillwater is down a player the rest of the way. They do get the ball here, and we've seen it before. Short-handed does not make it impossible. Kodidek picks up her stick and puts her headgear back on, so her penalty has expired. But again, Stillwater down a player the rest of the way. They can have no more than 6 in the attacking zone. They did score a shorthanded goal earlier in this game, so they've done it before. They'll have to do it again to stay undefeated in conference play. They have not lost since the season opener to Prior Lake. They draw a foul here outside the 8-meter line. We'll see where they position Avery Earlbeck. It will be at the 12-meter line. Again, you typically don't go for a direct attack at this position, but you could run another set or run another decoy play. Another element Stillwater has to monitor is time. There's still plenty of it, but a takeaway can change that tune in a hurry. White Bear Lake snatching that ball. Jensen on the move. That was Peterson making the defensive play. Peterson with the stick check earlier to stop an 8-meter shot. She gets a key turnover here. White Bear Lake using a timeout with 5:21 to go in the 4th. .521, and a win for White Bear Lake again would rejuvenate their season, give them a jolt, and would really shake up the Section 4 seeding. The 2 Detroit Mercy commits, Peterson and Jensen, have left their imprint in this one. All it takes is one, as you can see on the screen right now. That is the 1 goal that has been scored in the frame. Let's take a look at some of the past goals as we ride out this timeout. Back and forth this game has gone. Neither team is led by more than 2. And if you had asked any of us if that was the way this game would be played, I don't think you would reach that consensus, that conclusion among anyone. Myself, the truck team, maybe White Bear Lake. There's a reason why they say you got to play the games, why you don't win them on paper. And you can run all the simulations, but you just need to win one time. Now this is a regular season game. Section rounds of the money game, but this can go a long way when you can get those upsets. Stillwater, their balance on display, their quick responses. We saw that from Indira Capel. 6 different Stillwater players have scored. Peterson and Jensen have led the way for White Bear Lake, as we're getting a look at some of Peterson's scores. That was from earlier in the half. We didn't get that last one in the highlight package, but if White Bear Lake hangs on, trust me, that play from Jensen to Peterson a while ago will be on the highlight reel, certainly on the highlight reel for those two. Both teams with one timeout left. With 5:21 on the clock, so depending on what happens here, again, you're not in panic mode yet. White Bear Lake with the ball. And a reminder, no more than 6 for Stillwater now because they picked up 4 team yellows. So White Bear Lake plays with a woman up unless they were to get 3 more yellows of their own, and then they would have to send out a player. I don't think that'll happen. It's possible, but not the likeliest of outcomes here. How do you work with that extra space? It should give you some more seams, lanes, but that doesn't guarantee you'll run away with it. White Bear Lake, oh, the net, unguarded. Stillwater sending in an extra position player. You don't have to have a goalie between the net, but that net is open. This might be the equivalent, as I'm processing this here, this might be the equivalent of pulling out the goalie in hockey to send an extra attacker out there. Stillwater doing that here, so the net right now sits unguarded. I should remind you viewers out there who may be new to the sport that even though it's unguarded, an offensive player still cannot enter the crease, so they have to operate outside of it. But Stillwater pulling their goalie to get that extra attacker, and they've got to be careful here already with 4 yellows. I don't know if they add up or if you have to get another 4 before sending off a player. But White Bear Lake drawing a foul. And now Stillwater has to send their goalie back in. Jacqueline Richard for this 8-meter shot, or just outside of it. White Bear Lake not the best angle, but still a key sequence there. So keep an eye on the net. Right now we're at the far corner. Another foul. Stillwater getting a little more aggressive here. If Stillwater is able to take control, I wouldn't be surprised if they pull the goalie to get that extra attacker. Again, players can sub in and out freely. White Bear Lake, if nothing else, eating up a lot of time. They've got a chance here. They make it 8-6 on the score for Hendrickson. She was left wide open. Nobody was covering her. We'll take another look as you saw Jacqueline Richard. Good consolation, I believe. Koditek played set up again. Jacqueline Richard upset. Stillwater in a bind now. They were number 4 this week in the girls lacrosse rankings. Coming in, we thought this would just be another stepping stone, another prologue to what figures to be an epic battle with Lakeville South a week from tomorrow. Now, White Bear Lake, I know girls lacrosse and boys lacrosse, they don't get the same publicity that hockey and basketball or football do, but they are closing in. Stillwater with the ball here. They're gonna have to move quickly with 2:11. Off speed, batted away by McElmurray. Foul. Stillwater will get to set up at the 8-meter line. It's Ava Mosley. The clock stopped with 1:56. I believe it stops in the final 2 minutes. Stillwater, they need this one. They got to convert here to have a reasonable chance at preserving a win. McElmary lost it momentarily, but spotted it. Dumps it behind the net. Remember, offensive players, attacking players cannot enter the crease, so goalies will sometimes do that to avoid the 10-second call. And now White Bear Lake can run out the clock here. They don't have to do anything more. With that 2-goal lead, we were talking about it earlier. I don't know where the phrase or the saying that it was the most dangerous one came about, but it's nice to have that breathing room, especially with 1:10 to go. And this is where having that 2-goal lead is so valuable, because it gives you room for a mulligan.
1 minute remaining in the quarter. 1 minute.
Under a minute. This series has been dominated by Stillwater going back to at least the last 9 years, and it hasn't been close in most cases. Last year's meeting, Stillwater won 12-4. There was a 22, 24, and 23 series of decisions won by the Ponies. I know teams change year in and year out, but this victory will be a long time coming for White Bear Lake. Not only will they upset the number 4 team in the state, they are going to hold them scoreless in the second half. If you told me those two things would happen, I might scoff. White Bear Lake looking for the icing on the cake. They won't get it, but there's going to be plenty of icing. A sweet taste of victory for White Bear Lake. 8-6 the final. And for the first time in eons, eras, decades, White Bear Lake knocks off Stillwater, the number 4 team in the state, holding them scoreless in the second half. White Bear Lake goes to 4-3, Stillwater falls to 5-2. But perhaps more importantly, what this will do is open up the section standings, and it also opens up the Suburban East Conference. Stillwater now has a loss. So the results, the games coming up for Stillwater take on that much more meaning. Last Friday, Stillwater knocked off the team that I thought would pose the biggest challenge at Cretin-Durham Hall, holding off a couple of surges. Instead, it's White Bear Lake who came in with the game plan. And we go back to all of those moments, the 2 yellows on Madeline Richard, the missed opportunities. Stillwater had several looks from the 8-meter line. One went off the post, another went high. Any one of those chances would have given Stillwater the lead. White Bear Lake only scored twice in the 4th, but the go-ahead goal from Bev Peterson matching a season high. And then the insurance from Julie Hendrickson, the senior. One going to play D1, another may have other plans in mind. Both will get to take credit and share it with their teammates in, by far, the best performance and the grittiest of the season for White Bear Lake. So, the Bears go to 4-3. They pick up their biggest win of the season. And they're going to have plenty of rejuvenation in the second half of the lacrosse season. It's going to make a rematch in sections that much more interesting should these two meet again. But until then, it's time to bid adieu from White Bear Lake. We'd like to thank all of you for watching live coverage of high school girls lacrosse. Congratulations to White Bear Lake on an 8-6 win over Stillwater. Bev Peterson with 4 goals to lead the way. So, until next time, this is Mike Peden reminding you to help control the pet population. Have your pet spayed or neutered. Thanks again, everybody.